recycling is important because waste has a huge negative effect on the natural environment. It's easy to do, and a lot of people don't seem to realize the effect it has on the earth and the people living in it. So 60% of what we throw away actually can end up being recycled, but it ends up in our landfills instead. And due to the rising population, the amount of waste being produced every day is also increasing. So the first main reason why recycling is important is because the recycled material that should go into be reused again goes into landfills and releases harmful chemicals and greenhouse gases that are released from the rubbish and the recycled material in the landfill sites. So to help reduce the amount of pollution caused by waste, it's important to recycle rather than throwing your stuff away. And doing this speeds up climate change, global warming, and sea level rising. So according to an article called How Recycling Paper Fights Global Warming, it says that recycling paper prevents methane emission, since paper sitting in landfills is the largest contributor to methane being generated in our environment. So just recycling your paper can prevent the amount of methane being released into the environment, which is a harmful greenhouse gas that causes global warming and other environmental problems. So not recycling also plays a big threat to our waters. According to National Geographic, lots of plastics don't end up where they should, and they end up in landfills or even worse, in our oceans. And a recent study found that 268,940 tons of plastic particles are currently drifting through the oceans. And all this plastic in the ocean causes devastating effects on the marine ecosystems and all the creatures living in the waters. So there's actually names for big piles of trash like these, or the plastics in the oceans. One's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It spans from the west coast of the US to the coast of Japan, and it's just a patch of plastic flowing through it. I actually have a picture example here. You can see this is the ocean, and all the rubbish there is all of the plastic that ends up from different coasts, from either the west coast in the United States or Japan, and ends up just floating in our waters. So that also, since plastics don't break down, they break into tinier pieces, and that's a really big threat for like fishes and other sea creatures living in the waters, because they may mistake that plastic for being food and eat it, and it could cause them to die. So it definitely plays a threat on our marine environments. So recycling also reduces the need for raw materials so that rainforests and other forests can be preserved. So according to Rain Tree Facts, 150 acres of rainforest are lost every minute of every day. So they're constantly being cut down for our use for things like paper and other raw materials. So recycling paper, for example, can be used to make new paper and preserve the amount of trees that we need to make paper. So in an article called Get Back to the Basics, it says that 1 billion trees worth of paper are thrown away every year in the US alone. So some statistics about the paper, and so for each ton of recycled paper, if you recycle it rather than throw it away, you can save 17 trees, 380 gallons of oil, 3 cubic yards of landfill space, 4,000 kilowatts of energy, and 7,000 gallons of water. So overall, that's saving 64% of energy savings, 58% of water savings, and 60 less pounds of air pollution just by using recycled paper rather from raw material paper. So you also can see that using recycled paper can save the amount of water and energy and oil used to make paper from scratch. So recycling also helps preserve natural resources because huge amounts of energy are used when making products from raw materials. So when you're making maybe paper from scratch, you're using raw tree, and that just costs so much more money, and more materials are used to make that paper. So according to American Geosciences, if we recycle aluminum cans, we save 95% of energy required to make the same amount of aluminum from raw materials. So just an aluminum can alone together can be made from recycled aluminum cans rather than using raw materials to make those aluminum cans, because it will save a lot of energy, a lot less oil is used, and overall it will just save the amount of raw materials we take from the earth. And also another fact is one aluminum can, if you recycle it, could produce save about 3 hours worth of TV on an average TV. So recycling is also really important to people because making products from recycled material costs much less than making it from raw materials. So it's far better for the economy and the people involved in the economy. And it also preserves natural resources for our future generations, so we're not using as much energy or oil. Also, we're running out of landfill space, and those landfill spaces are taxed. And as taxpayers, we have to pay for those landfill spaces to be used more. And also, recycling brings more employment opportunities to people who are getting jobs in that field. So in the end, it's important to realize all the effects recycling has on this earth. So first, it helps prevent chemicals from getting into the air and all the greenhouse gases, like paper release a lot of methane gas in the air when it sits in landfills. And also it's important for our oceans because it keeps our oceans clean and doesn't kill all of the animals in the ocean because they're mistaking maybe plastic pieces for food, and it's ruining their environment. And also it's destroying forests that we could use recycled paper rather than using paper made from raw materials that cost a lot of energy. And it also saves a mass amount of energy in the end. So that's everything about recycling.